Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a really fascinating sermon that asks a pretty deep question about the legacy we all leave behind. It's all about the traces, the imprints, the marks we leave on the world and on each other. So let's just start right there. I want you to think about it for a second. Really think. As you go through your life, your job, your family, your friendships, what marks are you actually leaving in your wake? The sermon kicks things off with this really beautiful idea. It compares our lives to old family photos. They capture a moment, sure, but they also leave behind these traces, these imprints that tell a story and stir up memories long after we're gone.
And here's the thing. According to this text, it's not just if we leave marks. We all do. The real question is what kind of marks we're leaving. And it really boils down to a fundamental choice between two very, very different paths.
Okay, so this slide just lays that choice out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the selfish mark. That's a life driven by stubbornness, greed, a life that ends up causing pain. But then you have the other side, the self-denying mark. This is about walking with others, serving a greater purpose, and pouring yourself out to build other people up. The sermon's point is that every choice we make pushes us toward one side or the other. So to really bring that second path to life, the sermon gives us this powerful case study, the Apostle Paul. He's presented as someone whose life was literally defined by the marks he chose to bear for what he believed in. And this quote right here is at the very heart of it. When Paul says he bears marks on his body, he's not being poetic. He means literal physical scars that he earned because of his mission. In a way, those marks were his resume. They were the proof of his commitment. And the scale of that commitment, it was just immense. Get this. The source text calculates he traveled about 12,000 kilometers over 2 decades. And we got to remember, this wasn't with cars or planes. This was absolutely grueling travel, mostly on foot, all for his work. And those were not easy miles. I mean, look at this list. It's a record of just brutal suffering. He was whipped with 39 lashes 5 times. He was beaten with rods, stoned, shipwrecked. This catalog of pain makes it crystal clear what he meant by the marks on his body. They were a testament to what he was willing to endure for his cause. And just in case we don't grasp how severe this was, the sermon adds this really visceral detail. The whips they used back then often had bits of metal woven into them, literally designed to shred a person's back. We're talking about extreme, unimaginable pain, and he went through it over and over again. But here's the crucial part. Paul didn't do any of this alone. A legacy is almost never built in isolation. So the story shifts, and we start to see the community that formed around him, the people who decided to share in his mission and, in their own ways, his marks. First up, there was Luke. Now, the sermon points out he was a doctor. He could have had a comfortable, respected life, but instead he chose to travel with Paul, using his skills to literally patch up those awful wounds. And he stayed right by his side for 10 years, all the way to the end. And then you have Priscilla and Aquila. This couple gets exiled from Rome, which is a huge hardship. But instead of letting it break them, they set up their tent-making business in a new city and turned their own home into a sanctuary, a place that eventually became the very first church in Corinth. And the story of Sosthenes is just incredible. This guy was a leader in the synagogue. He had status, he had respect. But for his new beliefs, he gave it all up. His position, his community, he was totally cut off. He even ended up getting beaten, just like Paul. The marks he bore were all about profound personal sacrifice. And this is where you really see the ripple effect in action. It all starts with one small act. A couple offers their home. Because of that, a community can gather. Because that community exists, a leader like Sosthenes hears their message and is converted, and his sacrifice and strengthens the entire church. It's this beautiful chain reaction of positive marks. So, all of this, it brings us right back to that first very personal question. The sermon wraps up by turning the lens right back around on us, asking us to think about our own pretty brief lives. The pastor tells this story about watching the Nutcracker ballet, where the main character has this whole incredible adventure, but it all happens in a dream. And it sparked this thought, what if our life is just like that? What if it's this short, vivid dream that's going to be over before we know it? And when you start to think that way, it brings up a very specific fear that the pastor talks about. The real fear isn't dying.
It's waking up from this dream of a life only to realize that the marks you left behind were marks of pain in other people's stories.
Which leaves us right here with this final powerful question. It's the same one we started with, but now it carries the weight of Paul's scars and Luke's loyalty and a whole community's sacrifice. When it's all said and done, when your brief dream is over, what marks will prove you're here?